Your goal is to buy as many cheap players as you can in hopes that you're able to sell them off later for profit. When you're wasting money on doing that, when one or two or three or four quality players would have provided far more funds for the club in the form of TV revenue for Champions League, all of these things, than what we've currently got.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Let's go now.
What's going on, folks? Will Stewart here with THFCRants, and today I'm going to be reacting to Chairman Daniel Levy's update that he gave the other day. So yeah, I'm just going to be going through this. I'm going to be hitting the pause button and stuff like that. Just going to kind of talk through it, talk over the top of it. So let's bring it in, and here we go.
Thanks for your time today. First of all, we've announced Fabio as managing director of the football side.
I've known Fabio for a number of years, obviously from Juventus. We had a number of discussions over the years. He was a very, very tough negotiator, very knowledgeable. I've got a lot of admiration for him, and I think he'll be a great addition to our management team.
So what we've got here is Daniel Levy is basically kind of announcing the new director of football, Fabio Paratici. And for people that don't know, Fabio Paratici used to be kind of sporting director over at Juventus. I can't remember any particular people over the last couple of years that we've signed and or sold to Juventus, although we did try to pick up Paulo Dybala. So maybe Paratici was kind of one of the people that kept Daniel Levy from being able to sign Paulo Dybala, as he says that he wanted to do. But, you know, I'm sure people in the industry meet all over the place. It happens. It's commonplace. But let's keep going.
Everything to do with the football side of the club, he will have responsibility for. Obviously, recruitment is one element, but he'll be working closely with Steve Hitchin and all the others.
So there's a lot of concern that Steve Hitchin was going to get sacked after Fabio Paratici came in. Apparently, that's not the case. So Steve's still going to be staying on as technical director and I guess the head of the scouting department or whatnot. So I guess Steve Hitchin will now be working underneath Fabio Paratici.
Analysts and all the scouting department. Juventus has been a highly successful club. He's been a major part of that, and hopefully some of that will rub off on Tottenham.
So yeah, Juventus has been a highly successful club domestically, but domestically, this is Serie A that we're talking about. So I mean, they won the Scudetto like 9 seasons in a row, right? On the international stage, however, they haven't been that big of a force. I mean, granted, they do make Champions League every year. They go decently far into that tournament every single year. But it's not, you know, it's not like they're winning back-to-back Champions Leagues. And, you know, and recently, it was just kind of, I think it really has to do now, other than maybe a few names here and there, I haven't been super excited with a lot of the players that Juventus has signed over the last couple of years. So do I think that Fabio Paratici is going to do a good job at Tottenham? I don't know. Look, for me, it's, you know, anything that gets Daniel Levy as far away from the football as possible. That's what I'm okay with. But let's hear what else he has to say.
Have you got any news on a new head coach?
What's been interesting, I mean, I must have had about 30 different names from fans. Some of the individuals that have been mentioned in the media that has apparently rejected us, we haven't even spoken to. I don't want to comment.
Okay, so this is a big one, right? So he basically just said that some of the people that have been reported in the repeater, or in the media, he hasn't even spoken to, right? So who's he talking about here? Is he talking about Pochettino? Is he talking about Conte? Right? He's not being very specific at all about who he's talking to, who he's never even spoke to. And the only one that I know of that fans are upset about is either the Pochettino one or the Conte one. Right? All of the other stuff with like Nagelsmann, Ten Hag, Graham Potter, you know, Scotty Parker, Nuno Espirito Santo. Nobody's upset about those rumors or those things that the bookies have put us in place. But, you know, so why wasn't the club coming out and saying this isn't just a rumor? Don't believe it. Right? Look, if it's not true, why are you allowing the rumors to facilitate when you could easily come out in a press conference, in a statement, an official statement from the club saying, we've had no contact with these individuals. We wish them the best of luck, right? You're allowing that news cycle to continue through, regardless of whether you've talked to them or not. So it's the fact that you're not coming out and denying things. It's the silence. It's just because you don't want to go public with something doesn't mean that you can't just sit there and deny it. Like that's how normal PR teams work. There's a rumor that's going on about a company or an organization. You know, if you don't want to have any comment on it, you neither confirm nor deny, right? Or you just deny it. Just saying, Daniel.
On any one individual, lots of things get reported. All I would say to you is until we make something official, that's the only thing that fans ought to believe in.
Is it hard for you when misinformation comes in the form of personal criticism? We see how much work you put into this club every day. People around the club know you in a very different way to how.
So you can see how his face kind of crinkled there. He was very uncomfortable with that conversation, right? He was very uncomfortable with that question. He's like, now's my shot to say some things in my own defense. I mean, the way that the muscles in his neck there were crippity creaking, cracking, right? So I mean, but look, you're a public figure. You're the owner of a football club. Especially if you've done the things that you've done, you're going to get criticism. If you want to be this private person and you're not going to come out and deny, confirm, nor deny, or, you know, any of these things, then you need to be willing to take that criticism because it's going to come from the press, right? Transparency breeds trust, right? Being transparent and open about things that are happening, that's what causes people to trust people. So if you're going to hide yourself in a shell, if you're not going to come out and make comments, then it is what it is, mate.
How you are portrayed in the media.
Do you know, I get lots of personal criticism, and one of the reasons is that
I think the personal criticism that you get is well deserved. Personally, I mean, I personally think that criticism is well deserved. You may not think so, but I think so. And you know, I criticize you not as a human being. I'm sure you're a nice guy. I'm criticizing you based on your decisions or your lack of decisions, or when you could have put in an extra $5 million here and gotten this player who would have been successful, but instead you didn't spend $5 million here and you spent $15 million here to get two average players that ended up not helping us at all. Right? That's how I criticize you. That's where I'm criticizing you, Daniel. That's what you're getting criticized for here. Anyway, there's a lot of other things. You know, I don't necessarily think that some of the things that some of the ways that Joe Louis and yourself have made money is wholeheartedly ethical. But you know, that is what it is.
I'm the type of individual that I like to do things in private. I don't like to criticize other people in a public way. And if I did, then I would be protecting my own name. But
how is criticizing other people in a public way protecting your own name? Right? Coming out and making a statement, just because you come out and you say something doesn't necessarily mean that you have to criticize in a negative tone unless that person's done a negative thing. Why can't you just come out and make a statement? Right? Have your PR people write it up for you. Come out, make an effort, right? Instead of hiding in your ivory tower. This is why people don't trust you. You're not a normal Joe who can just keep himself to himself. You own a football club worth over £1 billion, right? You are a public figure. Right? There are companies, full-fledged companies with CEOs who don't have an evaluation like Tottenham Hotspur does. You can't just hide away. You have to come out and you make statements like you're doing now, or rather a non-statement. Let's continue.
But I want to protect the club and I want to behave with dignity. At this moment in time, I'm not going to change the way I am, and I want to do things in.
Nobody's asking you to change the way you are. All we're asking you to do is to run a business with transparency. So if you're saying that's too much to ask for you to come out and be open to, your customers, then why should we be a customer? Right? You have to understand that us as fans are technically your customers. So if you're not willing to provide customer service, why should we be a customer of your club? So you're basically going to use our passion, desire, and our loyalty to the badge against us, and saying, screw what you guys want. I'm just going to do what I want to do. Okay.
In private.
There's been a lot of speculation about Harry Kane.
Look, I'm never going to talk specifically about an individual player in public. All I would say is his frustrations of us not winning is shared by me, and I'm sure all the fans and the players. Clearly, we all want to win. I think,
if that's true, why do you make the decisions that you make? Why would you not go in and spend £5 million for Jack Grealish and then go out and buy other players that haven't helped and that we've ended up having to let go or have become a new piece of deadwood? Why would you go in for Jedson Fernandez instead of Bruno Fernandes? Why? Look, you would not have had to spend a lot. Probably you would not have had to spend any more money than you already have if you had have chosen wisely, right? Chosen quality over quantity, Daniel. Your goal is to buy as many cheap players as you can in hopes that you're able to sell them off later for profit. When you're wasting money on doing that, when 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 quality players would have provided far more funds for the club in the form of TV revenue for Champions League, all of these things, than what we've currently got. I mean, come on, man.
one of the items that Fabio will have to deal with when he comes in is, which players are being retained, which players will be asked to look for other clubs.
And that's because you're really horrible at this. You are really horrible at letting go of players. It seems to me like you're almost emotionally attached to them, which is not a good thing. Right? I'm not saying you're not a fan. I've never been one to make that assertion. But you got to be able to cut people loose, man. You got to be able to pull the plug. Like the way that you went over and over, Christian Eriksen in the documentary, it was pretty bad, man. It was pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Anyway, let's continue.
But obviously, there's a market out there, and it's what we want and what somebody else wants is not always possible to achieve.
Of course. Nobody's expecting you to go out and get every single fan's wish for transfers. It's not what we expect. No one is expecting that. What we are expecting you to do is, instead of going out and buying 3 average players, how about go buy 1 good one? Is that too much to ask? 1 good one each window. 2 good ones. Now and again. we do that? Instead of blowing money on garbage? Not that they're garbage people, but I mean, it's like going to Payless Shoes and buying the cheap shoes 5 times a year instead of just going and getting a pair of Nikes at the beginning of the school year and wearing them the entire school year. You end up the amount of money you end up spending is the same, but the heartache and the pain is less. So instead of going out and buying these average players and then having to let them go, why not just go out and purchase the quality ones? Even if it costs a little bit more now, the success of the club is guaranteed to increase, and therefore your revenue is going to increase. This isn't hard. This isn't rocket science. It's not. You honestly have just done a poor job.
We'll do whatever is right for the club.
Generally, there's the view that if we invest X into players, then that's going to equate to success.
The financial consequences of buying and selling players, that's one area that if you don't get right, it can have dire consequences.
Yeah, and it's had dire consequences now because you haven't gotten it right. I.e. Eric Dyer. Right? You have not gotten this right. And it is having dire consequences. The fact that we can't get a manager in, the fact that that we're about to lose Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, right? All of these different things. This is a dire circumstance that we're in now. And I'm really looking forward to the summer to see what you do with it, how you go about it.
We have to be realistic where we are today. You know, we're still in a pandemic. The consequences for this particular club have probably been more severe than any other club.
Why? Why is the consequences been more severe for Tottenham Hotspur than any other club? Why has it been more severe? Yes, maybe the timing was worse, seeing as when the stadium was completed. But that's off on the loans. Governments have passed laws that allow time for that. You've taken out loans, or you have capital, right? This is not something that is earth-shattering for Tottenham Hotspur, even with the stadium.
In the Premier League, over 200 million of lost revenue that we cannot recover.
Of course. It's not that you can't recover, it's that you can't recover then. Right? You can still reschedule those events, those concerts, those other things. That same type of revenue will come back in. It just can't come in during that time because those events didn't happen at that time. Of course, it's not recoverable. You're talking about scheduled events. If the scheduled events didn't take place on that exact day, that revenue is not recoverable. It doesn't mean you can't make that same revenue in the future. I'm sorry, fella.
Our timing on opening a new stadium could not have been worse. You know, we have the most expensive stadium in Europe.
It's not your fault, though. Nobody expected this thing to happen, right? Nobody expected this thing to happen. Well, nobody's blaming you for that.
The highest level of debt.
But the debt is all in assets. The debt's in assets, long-term assets. And you're going to say that here in a second, but I don't know.
Any club in Europe, but luckily for us, it's all long-term. It's, you know, we're in a good financial position in that sense.
Yeah, because that debt is not a risk, right? That debt's not something that's due now or due for a long time. You know, house mortgages, for example, 30 years, etc.
But, you know, we're not getting the revenues that we had hoped for from our stadium. And as a consequence,
right now,
have to be careful over the next coming years because we need to be prudent. And now
you're not being prudent because as soon as everything opens up full speed, you can just go ahead and go, right? You know what your incoming revenue stream is going to be. Right? These are scheduled events. You know in advance how much money you're going to make and when. right? The only thing that is unpredictable is merch and food and drinks, beverage sales the day of. Everything else is well and easily known. It is. You're being overly cautious, or at least you're speaking overly cautious. But
our duty is to protect the club, even though obviously we want to win. Sustainability is clearly one of the biggest things that football clubs throughout Europe are now facing. There are a number of clubs that are in very, very severe financial difficulty.
yeah, I mean, you're talking about the ESL here, right? And you're talking about the people who organize the Super League. Real Madrid, Juventus, Barcelona, stuff like that. I mean, it's fairly obvious that the UK clubs aren't near as bad straits as the clubs from other leagues, because the Premier League has a monopoly on overseas televised rights. So because of all of that money coming in from the Premier League, from the TV deals, you guys aren't hurting as bad, right? So, just saying. Yeah, I hear you.
We will spend, but
we will spend, but
we're a self-sustaining club.
Self-sustaining club. Every club is a self-sustaining club. I mean, unless you're talking like Man City, the owner coming in and dropping cash in and counting as a sponsorship, self-sustaining. So that's what he's saying right here. We are a self-sustaining club. What he's saying right here is that himself and Joe Louis won't put in any money. If Tottenham Hotspur doesn't earn it, the club won't spend it, is what he's saying right here. So why even be an owner? You're basically just facilitating the club as a CEO. You have no plan in making any owners' contributions into the club in order to get things done, is basically what he just said. Right? That is what he just said. Let's listen to that again. Let's listen to that part again.
We're a self-sustaining club. We have to be sensible. Sometimes fans think we ought to be spending, but
self-sustaining club, we ought to be sensible. What that means is there's no ENIC money that's getting spent here. If Tottenham Hotspur doesn't have the cash, and then I decide as a partner in ENIC how Tottenham Hotspur spends their cash. So if I would rather pay back the bank loan, more, or if I'd rather pay off the ESL debt that we have to do, or if I'd like to take out another £125 million loan from a bank and then pay that back instead of transfers, that's my choice. So I get to spend the money how I want, but all of the money is going back into Tottenham Hotspur. That's what he said. Remember, he said that. All the money that comes in from any event is going right back into the team. And we should be. Then you shouldn't be making any profit off Tottenham Hotspur. Then you shouldn't. How can it be that before the pandemic we were top 3, top 4 most revenue clubs in England, but yet our wage bill was that of Leicester City and West Ham? 2 times the annual revenue as those 2 clubs, and yet our wage bill was less than £1 million apart from them annually. So we're talking, £250 million more a year, and not spending more than £1 million a year in wage bills. Facts, Daniel. Facts.
There have been circumstances where actually the coach doesn't want us to spend on a particular player. And again, we would never make comment. And all I would say is we will make investment in the squad.
And of course, this money has to come from somewhere.
Firstly, we have financial fair play. We've always been a club that has.
But we've got, like I said, we've got one of the lowest wage bills, and which is what financial fair play is based on, and the 3rd or 4th most revenue in the country. So I don't know about that, Daniel?
Managed to finance everything within its own means. Everything I've worked for the last 20 years in this club is in this club.
Finance everything within its own means, meaning that it cost Enoch nothing.
In 20 years, we've invested approximately 1.4, 1.5 billion into capital assets.
Into capital assets. Okay, so people who don't know what that are, the capital assets means buildings, infrastructure, stadium, etc. Not in the team, into capital assets.
At the same time, we have over that period progressed on the pitch.
We've progressed on the pitch. Over the last 20 years, we progressed under Redknapp and Mauricio Pochettino. And that's about it.
Perhaps not as much as we all would have liked.
Yes, definitely not as much as we all would have liked.
I often read in the media about some of our fans criticising that we don't care about the club, we just care about money.
But that's because of the decisions that you make. Right? You don't care about the football. That's our biggest problem with you, Daniel, is that you don't care about football. You're not going after you're not paying attention to the footballing side of it. New stadium, great. Training ground, great. All that stuff. We want to win as fans. You've had the opportunity to sign players that would have guaranteed us success. To guarantee us success. And you chose worse options just to save a few £1 million. And to people out there watching, a few £1 million, that's a lot of money. Not to him, it's not. Not to the club, it's not. We're talking about $1 billion organization. Or £1 billion organization. Yeah? £1 billion. $1 million here or there is nothing. Right? Chump change. You find it. He probably find £1 million in the cushions of his couch.
And what I'd say to them is every single penny that goes into this club, whatever the revenue source is, whether that is purely football or whether that is third-party events like conferencing or concerts, it's all going back into the team. Every single.
I'm not seeing that going back into the team. Every single penny. So you're saying that every single penny in profit, every single penny goes back in the team. You're not making any money off Tottenham Hotspur. That's not true. That's not true. The balance sheets in the P&Ls that the club releases annually show that you have one of the highest profit rates out of any club in the Premier League. That money's just going right back into your pocket. It's not gone into the team. It's not. Yeah, you're paying off the loan bills, but you're not paying extra on them. You're not paying them down faster. You're paying what your payment is. And then the profit, right? You're spreading that over, you're amortizing that over a long period of time. And you're putting the profits now in your pockets now. That's what you're doing. Look, I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Single penny that comes into this club will go back into the team.
It hasn't. It hasn't. So when is that going to happen?
All we want now, having spent all these years getting the infrastructure at this club in the most fantastic position, is to invest in the team. We take a long-term view. We have to protect this club. We're custodians of.
Look, you're custodians of the club and all that stuff. You don't act like custodians, my man. You don't.
We have to have in football because things can change so quickly, positive and negatively. We all know where we were 2 years ago. Are we satisfied where we are today? Absolutely not.
That's your fault. If you're not satisfied with it, fix it. You could have fixed it. You could have done more to fix it this summer. Could have got Conte in, but you didn't. You could have brought in players in the winter transfer window when it was obvious things were going downhill defensively, and you didn't. could have gone in for Diaz in the summer. It was fairly obvious that our center backs were a weak position, and you didn't. You didn't do any of those things. But hey.
And we need to turn it around. But we need to make sure that this club is still in a sound financial position in the years to come.
How can it not be? With the capital assets that you've purchased, how could the club not be in a good financial position? Right? That work's done now. Make the payments. As long as you can make the payments and pay the staff, right? You're going to be fine. Right? As long as your overhead costs are meetable on the revenue, you're going to be fine. It doesn't matter. You know what won't be fine? Is if the club isn't in Champions League and getting that extra £100 million a year. And you know how you get that £100 million a year? You know, at least is by buying players that can actually play the game. FYI.
We need that success on the pitch now. My view is...
So go get it. Go get it. Don't stop talking about it. You've been talking about it for the last 5 years. I'm tired of hearing you talk about it. Stop talking about it and just go do it.
Is that we've got unfinished business.
What unfinished business do you have? How many trophies have you won for this club? One? In the entire time you've been here? One? In 21 years, one. You have a lot. You have 21 years of unfinished business that you need to take care of. Anyway. Look, for people that think that that I'm being overly harsh or something like that, I'm not. I think I'm being very fair. Being very fair. But hey, if you guys think that that's the case, don't know what to tell you. Anyway, folks. I'm Will Stewart with THFCRants. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, stay strong, stay Spurs. And we'll see you next time. And Daniel, we'll see you on the show next time. You're on our show all the time, but we'll see you again next time. All right, folks, take it easy. We'll see you later.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Let's go now.